Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Matters That Matter. I'm Simran and I'm in a conversation with my mentor, Susie Singh. Susie, today I want to talk to you about procrastination. It is something that a lot of people struggle with on a daily basis. And because people don't know how to deal with it or why it happens to them, it can be accompanied by a lot of frustration and guilt and shame and self blame. So it would be really helpful today for our viewers if you can shed some light on the reasons for procrastination and how we can deal with it.
Yes, Simran, I think we're all familiar with this behavior of delaying action, and I'm sure each one of us has, at some point in time of our lives, also procrastinated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that this behavior earns the label, the negative label, of either being
Mm-hmm.
lazy or being irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important for us to unpack this behavior type so that we can delve into the deeper reasons underlying the act of procrastinating. When we think of procrastinating or see someone procrastinating, it comprises of three basic aspects. The first is the knowledge that something is calling my attention or action. The second is an internal resistance that prevents me from doing that action. And the third is either a conscious or an unconscious choice to delay that action.
Right.
Now, as you've asked, what are the reasons that make this happen? And I'm going to talk about 6 broad resistance patterns, which can be clubbed into 3 categories. These are the more common resistance that people encounter, which causes them to procrastinate. The first are behaviors or resistance patterns that are linked to competency. The second are linked to fear of consequences. And the third is a lack of ownership. So
Right.
let's address the first one, the competency-related issues first. Top of that list, as many may have guessed, is a fear of failure. Now, if somebody has had an experience of having failed in the past, or had a series of failures in the past, then every time that they are called to action in some regard where there is the association with performance, with a report card of kinds, or a performance evaluation of kinds, then there is going to be this internal resistance that will raise its head in order to protect you from impending failure, disappointment associated with that behavior, and with the feeling that I am no good. So
Right.
it becomes really important for someone who is afflicted with the fear of failure to be able to uncover that historical event or events. And unless those are addressed, the mind of this person is actually going to tell them 2 things. One, you are going to fail. It's almost predetermined in their mind that the only outcome of their action is going to be failure. And therefore, the second response to that, which is a coping response, which is better not to do this than to do it and fail. Because if I fail, I'm going to go through that experience of feeling very disappointed in my own self. And I am going to cause disappointment to the people who are cheering me on, or who trust in me, or who believe that I can succeed.
Yeah.
So this is the reason that this person is not going to act. But those who are viewing it from the outside might see it as this person just is not willing to put in the effort or the hard work involved. So we can see the 2 scenarios, the optics are very different.
Right.
Understanding what is causing the resistance inside the person will help them solve this problem. The second issue connected to competency is this fear of being inadequate, of just not knowing enough. Now,
Right.
very often people may feel that I don't have the skills required to do what I'm called to do, or I'm just not qualified enough, or while I have the qualification, I just don't have any past experience in this. And so they will hesitate to show up in that area.
Right.
Now, it's pretty obvious if that is the case, then the solution is simple. And the solution is to upscale whatever is lacking, whatever you are inadequate in. It is the second issue that is more complicated, where you actually feel that it's an imagined inadequacy. You have all the qualification required, you have studied the subject deeply, but you believe you're never going to be enough. In this case, it usually stems from some historical event where an authority figure has perhaps said to you that you'll never make a good enough so-and-so, which may be whatever you are choosing to become. So you'll never be good in maths, or you will never become a good enough doctor, etc. And that spell, so to say, becomes so sticky in your mind. You believe it, but you're not aware of it. And so you're so sure that you are inadequate. Now, this is something that is obviously going to require a skilled support from a coach or a practitioner of the subconscious mind to help you unearth these things and resolve them before you can actually swing back into action. So as we see, when it comes to inadequacy, if there's some real lack, that is more easily handled. But if there is an imagined lack, then that needs expert help.
Yeah.
There is the third issue or third resistance pattern where competency is concerned. And this is something we all encounter in our daily lives. It is just simply about not knowing what to say, feeling awkward in awkward situations. Right. So let's say you have to make a call to someone who's lost someone very dear. And you really want to give that condolence message and connect with them, but you don't know what to say. And that really bothers you, and you keep pushing it back and postponing that event. Or somebody who's gone through something really difficult, a sort of failure of sorts, or has gone through a loss of another kind. Because you don't know and you're feeling so terrible for them, but you don't know and you don't want to disturb them further, it's just awkward for you and you don't want to do that thing.
Right.
There may be other everyday issues, and we find this often between spouses, where there's a call to be made to someone and each one will say, why don't you make the call? And the other one will say, no, why don't you make the call? And both are hesitating to make the call because either there's been a breakdown and you're trying to reconnect with someone and therefore there may be some ice to be broken, or you just don't know where to start or how to say things. So these are the three competency-related resistance or barriers that arise. Then we come to the second last, which is the consequence-related issues. And here the top one is the fear of being rejected or the fear of being hated. Very closely, the fear of being rejected can sometimes be linked to the fear of success.
Yeah.
If this person has had a history where you can say they are a serial shining star, or they've succeeded continuously through life, but they've had to pay a price for that success, which is they've been ostracized or they've been cast away for it, they are going to start dreading success. And then they are usually the kind of people who will make all of the efforts and stop one port short of success because they don't want to get there and be rejected by others. There is another associated phenomena, which is the fear of being hated. And we see this very commonly when bad news has to be given. For example, if you're a manager and you've been asked to break the news to your subordinate that he's being laid off, you can hesitate or want to push that task back by many days because you believe that telling this person may make him take this feedback very poorly. There may be a breakdown, they may be crying, and you may be very uncomfortable with that very vulnerable or emotional situation. Two, you may think that he may take it personally and respond to you in a hateful way because he may think that you are the reason why he's put out of a job. And so we can find that these become reasons for pushing back or procrastinating that task because you don't feel prepared and you're scared of the consequence. And then there is the other aspect of the fear of humiliation. Now, I think this is one resistance that we've all experienced while we were kids and we were studying in school, and we're sitting in class, there is something we don't understand, but we hesitate to put our hand up and ask the question because we believe, well, I'm sure everybody else knows the answer and I'm the only one who doesn't, and if I ask this question, I'm going to be seen as dumb by it. So we can see that when there is the need to stand out in a group situation, then the fear of humiliation can really become strong and make you prevent you from taking that action. Often there is also, we find when you grow up and particularly if you're in the workplace and you're called to make a presentation to the sales team or to a group of people, you may even choose to say, I can't do this. I'm not ready for it. Or any public speaking assignment or performing to an audience can become very daunting, and you might just decide that I can't show up for this one. I don't have the courage or the confidence to do this.
Right.
So these two fall under the consequence resistance barriers. And then there is the sixth one, which is the lacking ownership issues. Sometimes we find that a person may not be willing to do a task because he feels that he's been burdened with something unfairly, that it's not his to do, it's not his responsibility, or it's not his job, and why should I do this? And so he'll just put it on the back burner and not engage with the activity. So broadly, these are the 6 commonly experienced reasons for procrastinating. I would really urge anyone who is experiencing this sense of procrastination to ask themselves the question, what stops me from moving into action? And whatever answer you receive, if it falls into the category of lacking some real competencies, then it's simple, because what you really need to do is to upscale the skills, is to go out and get the necessary experience, or do the research and study that will make you feel more confident in the area that you need to act in. If, however, you find that there is some incidence of a past history of trauma or some experience which is keeping you stuck in the past and in a past fear, then I think it is important that you reach out to a coach or to a mental health specialist who can help you address that issue and help you find freedom from that past fear. This will involve both certain belief changes that you will require to make, as well as releasing the trauma of those past failures or difficult experiences that you may have had. Now, having done either or both of these, the next step is really for you to practice and rehearse, because the practice will bring you the confidence to show up in that area of action. And finally, when you're feeling almost ready, and please note, I'm saying almost ready and not completely ready, because one may never feel completely ready if you're a perfectionist. But if you are feeling, okay, I have a hang of how to go about this thing now, I've done my rehearsal, I've practiced a bit, then just have faith in yourself and move into action. So I think these are the broad steps that someone who's experiencing procrastination needs to take for themselves. And I'm sure they will find it easy to move into that state of doing.
Right. Susie, like you said earlier, that optics are very different from what is actually going on inside. And so many times this happens that when people procrastinate a lot and they don't know the reason for it, they get into these vicious cycles of procrastinating and then blaming themselves or judging themselves negatively, calling themselves lazy. And that leads to further procrastination, which then further leads to self-blame, and you just get stuck in this cycle.
Absolutely.
So how does one get out of the cycle if they're stuck in it at any given point of time?
I think the intercepting question is stopping to examine what is causing the procrastination. What is that internal resistance? Unfortunately, what happens is they don't pause to reflect on that issue. They go straight from not wanting to do that or not being able to do that to the judgment about themselves or their inadequacy, their incapability. And it probably becomes worse when people in their environment label them with the two things I mentioned when we started out, which is you're lazy or you're irresponsible, and that adds to their burden of self-blame and self-judgment.
Right.
So this is precisely the reason why I wanted to discuss the underlying patterns which stop them. We have to understand that it's not for a lack of will alone that the person is not being able to act. And therefore, there should be no self-judgment, because there is an internal barrier, which means something that they don't know about is stopping them from doing the action. And if they could find out what there was, and if they could neutralize the resisting charge of that something, then they would spontaneously find it so much easier to move into action. And once they're able to do that, they'll break this looping pattern of self-judgment. So where do they have to intercept it? At the stage when they find that, listen, this seems to happen with me repeatedly. So instead of personalizing it, and instead of saying, I am not able to do this, if they can recognize that there is something inside of me, and that could be a belief, that could be a spell cast by somebody, a statement said by an authority figure. It is something, it could be a past experience. Something is stopping me, and that something is not me.
Right.
This dissociation from what stops me and who I am will help them not to blame themselves and say, okay, there's a problem here. Once I cross over this hurdle, once I overcome this problem, I will have the capability to do this.
Right. I think that's very helpful because, as we know, self-judgment never really serves anybody or never helps anybody to progress. So it's very important for everyone to remember that it's if you are someone who's stuck in cycles of procrastination, it is very necessary for you to become aware of the underlying reasons that are stopping you from acting. And if you know someone who procrastinates, then it's best to not judge them if you want to help them. Thank you so much, Susie. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.